The first light of dawn slowly began to creep through the tall windows of Windsor Castle. Prince William awoke, his eyes blinking as they adjusted to the soft glow of the morning sun. Today was no ordinary day. Today would mark the beginning of a new chapter in British history, one that would be remembered for generations. The future King of England stretched his arms, feeling the coolness of the morning air as he looked out at the vast, beautiful gardens. The mist was still hanging low over the ancient oak trees, adding a peaceful sense of calm to the day. William had always known this day would come. From a young age, he had been told that one day he would be king, that he would carry the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders. But the reality of it, the responsibility, the pressure, the legacy, was something he had never truly understood. Until now, he had always seen himself as just William, a man with hopes, dreams, and flaws like everyone else. But today, everything was different. Today, he would step forward into a role that would define his life forever. As he sat up on the edge of his bed, he felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. There was so much to think about, so much to prepare for. How would the world see him? Would they view him as strong and capable? Would they see the prince who had grown into the king they had always hoped for? In the castle's royal dressing room, Sarah Martinez, William's personal dresser, was already hard at work. She had been with him for 5 years, learning every little detail about how he liked his clothes. She knew that today would be unlike any other, and every tiny aspect of his uniform needed to be perfect. Sarah had woken up long before the sun. Arriving at the gates of Windsor Castle at 5 a.m., carrying large garment bags and a small wooden box with the most precious items for the ceremony. As she passed through the security checks, the guards greeted her with respectful nods, recognizing the importance of what she was about to help create. Sarah had worked with many members of the royal family, but there was something special about William, a quiet strength, humility that made him stand out. Inside the royal dressing room, Sarah carefully unpacked the items she had brought. Uniform was like nothing she had ever seen before. The deep navy blue fabric shimmered in the soft light of the room. It was woven with golden threads, and when the light hit it, the fabric seemed to tell stories of centuries past. Every inch of the jacket had been carefully crafted by skilled hands. The shoulders were perfectly structured to give William a commanding presence while still allowing him to move with ease. The dozens of golden buttons, each one engraved with symbols of the royal family, were small but significant details, each representing a piece of British history. William's boots. 2 were works of art, made from the finest leather. They had been polished to a brilliant shine that reflected the light like black mirrors. It was hard to believe that each boot had taken 6 weeks to make by hand. There was a certain pride in knowing that such craftsmanship had been passed down through generations of artisans, preserving a tradition of perfection that had endured. For centuries, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, entered the room wearing a simple white robe. Her hair had already been styled by her team of experts who had worked tirelessly since the early hours of the morning. As she walked in, she smiled softly at Sarah, who was now carefully laying out the pieces of William's ceremonial uniform on the table. Catherine's smile was warm, but there was something deeper in her eyes, a mixture of pride and love. She watched her husband with a sense of quiet anticipation, knowing that this moment, this day, would change everything. Sarah began the careful task of helping William into his ceremonial attire. Catherine stood by, observing the transformation of her husband from the man she knew to the future king the world would see today. As the jacket was fastened around William's chest, Sarah moved on to the final touches. The ceremonial sword was placed carefully at his side, its blade polished to a brilliant shine. The handle, wrapped in golden cord, felt strong and steady in William's grip. It was a symbol of duty, a symbol that had been passed down through generations of men in his family. Everything was coming together. The deep navy blue uniform, the shining boots, the golden buttons, and the regal sword, each piece was a symbol of the monarchy's rich history. And yet, despite all of it, there was something missing. Something deeper, something more personal. William stood in front of the mirror, his reflection staring back at him. He looked magnificent. The uniform, fit him perfectly, as if it had been made just for him. He stood tall, feeling the weight of the cape resting on his shoulders. The fabric was heavy, but it wasn't just the weight of the material, it was the weight of the past. The weight of the crown that he would one day wear. But there was one more thing to add to the picture. One final touch that would make this day even more meaningful. Catherine walked quietly to a small wooden box sitting on the dresser near the window. Inside it was a small silver brooch. It had belonged to Princess Diana, William's mother. The brooch was small, no bigger than a coin, but its significance was immeasurable. It was a piece of Diana's history, a piece of her heart. She had worn it to many royal events, especially when meeting children and families in need. It was a symbol of the compassion and love that Diana had for the people. And now, Catherine wanted to share it with William, to remind him that no matter where he went, no matter what duties lay ahead, he would always carry a piece of his mother's spirit with him. When William saw the brooch in Catherine's hand, his eyes instantly filled with tears. He recognized it right away. He could remember his mother wearing it when she tucked him into bed at night, or when she took him and Harry to visit hospitals. Diana had always believed in helping others and using her position to bring attention to the struggles of the less fortunate. And now, William was about to step into her role. He was about to wear the crown. But he would always carry her heart with him. Sarah watched the moment unfold quietly, understanding its significance. Without a word, she moved to find the perfect spot to pin the brooch on William's uniform. It had to be a place that was both meaningful and discreet, something only William would know about. After a few moments of careful thought, Sarah decided the left shoulder, near his heart, would be the perfect place. There, it would be close to his chest, just as his mother had always been. As Sarah sewed the brooch into place, Catherine stepped back, watching William closely. His hand instinctively went to the spot where the brooch now rested. He didn't need to say anything. The emotions were written all over his face. The quiet, private moment between him and his mother was more powerful than any public ceremony ever could be. With the final touch in place, William stood before the mirror once again. He looked not just as a prince, but as a man who had the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was ready. Ready to carry the crown, ready to honor his mother's legacy, and ready to step into a future that would be filled with both joy and sacrifice. The world was waiting, and William would soon answer their call. But for now, in the quiet of the royal dressing room, with his wife by his side and his mother's spirit close to his heart, William allowed himself one last moment of peace before the world would see him as the future King of England. The morning of the coronation arrived with an eerie calmness. William stood in front of the grand windows of Windsor Castle, gazing out at the fog that seemed to blanket the land like a soft, silken veil. The castle, so majestic and timeless, felt quiet, almost as if it too understood the weight of the moment. Today William was not just a prince. He was a future king. As much as he had prepared for this day, nothing could prepare him for the deep emotional turbulence he felt inside. His heart raced with a mix of pride, fear, and anticipation. The responsibility of the crown of the people was one thing, but the weight of living up to the legacy of his ancestors, of carrying his family's honor and reputation, was a different matter altogether. A soft knock on the door broke his thoughts. He turned, expecting to see one of the royal aides, but instead, it was Sarah Martinez, his trusted dresser. She had been with him through countless public appearances, ensuring his appearance was perfect. But today there was something different in her eyes. She wasn't just a servant preparing his clothes. She was part of the family's history. "Your Highness, it's time," Sarah said, her voice soft but firm. She held a large, ornately designed garment bag in her hands. William looked at her for a moment, his heart heavy. "Is it really time?" he asked quietly, as though he were speaking to himself. Sarah smiled, understanding more than he could imagine. "Yes, it is. You've been preparing for this moment all your life." William nodded, but it didn't ease the storm inside of him. His mind swirled with thoughts of his late mother, Princess Diana. How would she have reacted? Would she have been proud of the man he had become? He missed her so deeply. Diana's presence was everywhere. Her memory shaped everything William was about to do. Sarah helped William out of his robe and into the ceremonial uniform, carefully draping each layer onto his body. The golden thread on the jacket sparkled as it caught the light, the deep navy blue fabric shimmering with a royal glow. Every part of the uniform, from the meticulously designed golden buttons to the polished leather boots, symbolized the legacy of the British monarchy, stretching back centuries. Each element had a story, a piece of history. Sarah's hands moved expertly, and William could feel the weight of the ceremonial garments settling on him. It wasn't just the physical weight of the closet, was the weight of his duty. With each button, each stitch, he felt more connected to the crown. And yet, the more connected he felt, the more distant he became from the man he had once been. As she fastened the ceremonial cape around his shoulders, William turned to face the mirror. His reflection was striking, a regal figure draped in centuries of tradition. Beneath the surface of the uniform, beneath the polished boots and golden embroidery, he saw a man who was still unsure of himself. Still a son, still a husband, still carrying the echoes of a mother who had left him too soon. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked softly, looking at him through the mirror. William blinked. He hadn't realized he was lost in thought. "I don't know. Feels like I'm not ready. Like I'm about to walk into something I'm not prepared for." Sarah smiled warmly. "You've been preparing your whole life. Every lesson, every moment, every challenge you've faced has led you here. You are ready, William. You just have to believe in yourself." For a moment, his eyes lingered on the reflection in the mirror. He saw himself as a prince's symbol of royalty and power, but he also saw a man who had lived through personal grief, through the highs and lows of public life, and through the pressure of knowing that the whole world was watching. I wish she could see me today," William whispered. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the emotions that he had fought so hard to control. His mother, Diana, had always been there for him, guiding him with her compassion and love. But now, as he stood on the cusp of something much bigger than himself, she was no longer there to offer that quiet strength. Sarah paused, her eyes softening with understanding. She had worked with the royal family for years, and she knew how much Diana had meant to William. "She's with you, William. In your heart, in everything you do. She's always been with you, and she'll be with you today." William's throat tightened. He wanted so badly to believe her words, to feel the presence of his mother as he prepared for this monumental day. But the absence of her was a physical ache, a wound that had never quite healed. "I wish I could have been more like her," William admitted quietly. She knew how to make people feel seen. She knew how to make the world better, even with something as simple as a smile. Sarah nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "You are more like her than you realize. Carry her spirit in everything. You do. She always believed in kindness, in making a difference. And I can see that in you, William. I've seen it every day." William turned away from the mirror and walked over to the small wooden box on the dresser. It was the same box he had seen many times before, but today it held something more precious than any crown jewel. It held the silver brooch that had belonged to his mother, a small, delicate piece of jewelry with a simple rose design. Catherine had insisted that he wear it today. Tucking it into the uniform, close to his heart, it was a silent tribute to Diana, a piece of her legacy that would be with him in spirit as he faced the world. As William held the brooch in his hand, memories of his mother flooded his mind. He could picture her smile, her laugh, and the way she had made him feel safe, even in the hardest of times. Diana had been the people's princess, but to William, she had been everything. Her love had shaped him, and even now, her influence remained in every decision he made. With a deep breath, William gently pinned the brooch onto his chest, just over his heart. It felt like a small but powerful connection to her, a way to carry her with him as he stepped into the spotlight. The door to the room creaked open again. It was Catherine, standing in the doorway, her face a picture of calm grace. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. William looked at her, his eyes filled with both uncertainty and determination. "I don't know, but I will be." Catherine stepped, forward, reaching out to touch his arm gently. "You are ready, William. I know you are." Her confidence, her belief in him, gave him the strength he needed to take the next step. They had been through so much together, and now, in this moment, she would be by his side as they both faced the future. "Let's go," she said with a smile, offering him her hand. William took it, feeling the warmth of her touch. Together, they walked out of the room, ready to face the world. And as they stepped out into the bright morning light, William felt something shift inside of him. The uncertainty didn't vanish, but he was no longer alone. He had his family. He had his people. He had his mother's love. And for the first time in a long time, he felt ready. The soft murmur of the crowd grew louder as Prince William walked slowly toward the grand balcony of Windsor Castle. His heart pounded in his chest, each step carrying the weight of history and the hopes of an entire nation. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind of excitement that could only come when something truly momentous was about to happen. The castle grounds were alive with people. Thousands of faces turned up to watch this incredible moment. Flags waved in the breeze, and the distant sound of marching bands filled the air. William had seen these moments before, growing up in the royal family, but today everything felt different. He wasn't just another prince. He wasn't just a son or a husband. Today, he was about to become the symbol of the future of Britain. He walked with slow, deliberate steps, trying to stay calm, but inside, his emotions were a whirlwind. He glanced to his right at Catherine, who walked beside him, her presence offering him comfort. She looked as calm as ever, but he could see the pride in her eyes. Her steady hand was placed lightly in the crook of his arm, as if to remind him that they were in this together. They reached the balcony, and William took a deep breath before turning to face the waiting crowd. His eyes briefly scanned the sea, of faces all staring up at him, hoping for something, a connection, a feeling, something that would make them believe in the future of the monarchy. William didn't know if he could give them that. He wasn't sure if he had the power to fill the shoes of the leaders who came before him, but he had to try. The moment felt like it lasted forever. The wind picked up, and the dramatic flow of his cape caught the light, flashing gold and crimson as it moved in the breeze. The sharp edges of the embroidered designs gleamed, as if the very threads that made up his uniform were alive. Every detail had been carefully crafted to perfection. The golden buttons, the royal insignia, the polished leather boot, everything screamed history. But to William, it all felt heavy. He felt like a figure from a storybook, one who had stepped out of the pages of history and was now standing in the real world. His fingers instinctively brushed the spot where the silver brooch was pinned to his uniform, just under his left shoulder, close to his heart. It was a small gesture, but it gave him strength. It was as if his mother, Diana, was with him in that very moment, reminding him of the values she had held dear. She had been known for her compassion and kindness, and William hoped, with all his heart, that he could carry on her legacy. Even if it felt impossible, his eyes met Catherine's once again, and she smiled at him, a quiet, knowing smile that spoke volumes. It was a smile that said, "You are not alone." It gave him the courage to lift his chin, stand a little taller, and face the crowd. The world was watching. A photographer standing to the side snapped a picture, and in that one instant, the weight of the moment seemed to lift, just for a second. In that brief flash, William realized that this was what his life would be like from now on. Every moment captured, every action analyzed, every move scrutinized. His life would no longer be his own. It would belong to the people, to the world. But it wasn't just the world that was watching him. It was his family too. His father, Prince Charles, had already passed on the baton to him, but William had always admired him, looked up to him. The image of his father, who had once been the young prince, now older and worn with the passage of time, flashed through his mind. "I'm ready," William whispered to himself, barely loud enough for his own ears to hear. He had to be. At that moment, a video began circulating on social media. James Fletcher, a tourist in the crowd, had captured the perfect moment. William, standing tall, his cape flowing dramatically in the wind. The clip was only a few seconds long, but it caught the very essence of the moment, the strength, the grace, the quiet confidence that William carried with him. What started as a simple video posted on TikTok quickly spiraled into something bigger. The video began to spread, first through a few friends, then hundreds, then thousands, until it reached millions. People all over the world began to repost it on their own accounts, sharing it with their followers, creating their own captions and edits. Sophie Chen, a 16-year-old girl from Singapore, was one of the first to turn the video into something even more captivating. She slowed it down, added orchestral music, and turned the clip into something out of a movie. It felt like a dream, a fairy tale, unfolding before their eyes. Soon, celebrities were getting involved. Pop stars, actors, fashion designers, everyone was sharing the video. Even famous names like Giorgio Armani posted it on their own social media, commenting on how Prince William's look was the perfect blend of history and modern style. The video didn't just stay in one corner of the internet, it's crossed cultures, countries, and continents. People from every corner of the globe were watching it, feeling something in their hearts. By the end of the day, the video had been seen by millions of people. And it wasn't just the fashion world that was impressed. News outlets and magazines were dedicating entire articles to William's coronation look, analyzing every detail of his uniform from the fine tailoring to the intricate gold embroidery. It was as if the world had been waiting for this moment, a moment of strength, grace, and leadership that could unite people. And that moment had come in the form of William's majestic appearance. But William didn't know any of this as he stood on the balcony, his eyes scanning the crowd. He only felt the silence, the anticipation, the pressure of what was about to come. And then, as the applause erupted, William smiled. It wasn't just for the cameras. It wasn't just for the people watching from afar. It was for himself. For Catherine. For his family. For the legacy he carried. And for the future he was about to build. In that moment, he realized something profound. It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about fulfilling some grand image of royalty. It was about being true to himself, about honoring the past while stepping boldly into the future. The world had already begun to see him as something greater than he was, a symbol, a figurehead, an icon. But inside, he was still just a man, trying to live up to the ideals he had been raised with. And maybe that was enough. He waved to the crowd, his cape billowing dramatically behind him, and for the first time all day, felt truly connected to everything around him, the history, the people, the moment. The weight of the crown was heavy. Yes, but it was also a gift. Maybe, just maybe, he was ready to carry it. The sun was beginning to set behind Windsor Castle, casting a warm golden glow over the ancient stone walls. The day had been long, filled with pomp, ceremony, and emotions that William would carry with him for the rest of his life. But as the noise of the crowd slowly faded and the royal family retreated into the quiet of their private chambers, the weight of the moment truly began to settle upon William's shoulders. In the privacy of his room, William stood before a large mirror. The golden embroidery of his uniform gleamed in the soft light, but his gaze was not focused on the clothes. It was on himself. He saw a man, a son, a husband, but above all, he saw a future king. He felt a wave of deep emotion rush over him, a mix of pride, fear, and uncertainty. Today had been a turning point, but tomorrow was the true test. Could he'd live up to the legacy that his ancestors had built? Could he protect and serve his people as they deserved? Catherine entered the room quietly, her presence a calm contrast to the whirlwind of emotions that had been swirling in his mind. Had seen him go through many important moments in his life, but today had been different. Today she saw the weight of his future on his face. She approached him gently, her soft smile offering him the comfort he desperately needed. "You did it," she whispered, her voice steady and full of pride. "You were magnificent." William looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and doubt. "Was I?" he asked, his voice quiet, unsure. Catherine stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. "Yes, William, you were. It's not about being perfect. It's about being true to who you are. And that's exactly what you did today. Her words sank deep into his heart. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to live up to some impossible standard. Just needed to be himself. He had always known that his role as king would require strength and courage, but he never realized how much it would ask of him emotionally. Every step forward felt like he was walking on a fine line between tradition and the future. Every decision would be scrutinized, every word weighed. "I never imagined this would feel like this," William said, looking down at his hands, now resting in Catherine's. "I thought I understood it, but now that I'm here, now that it's real, ... Catherine squeezed his hands gently, reassuring him. "You are ready. You always have been. Remember, you don't have to carry it alone. We're all in this together." His eyes met hers, and for the first time all day he felt a sense of peace. He wasn't alone. He had Catherine by his side, just as he had his family, his country, and the memories of his mother. Diana's love, kindness, and legacy were still with him, guiding him in every moment, even if he couldn't always feel it. That small brooch on his uniform, hidden close to his heart, reminded him of the values she had instilled in him, the importance of service, of caring for others, of making the world a better place. William turned away from the mirror and walked toward the window. The crowd was still gathered outside the castle, waving their flags, waiting for their chance to get a glimpse of the royal family. But in that moment, it wasn't the crowd he was focused on. It was the future. The weight of what was to come was still heavy, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. He thought about the millions of people who had watched him today. The video that had gone viral on social media, spreading across the world like wildfire. James Fletcher's simple video had captured a moment of magic, and now Prince William had become a symbol. His majestic coronation look, his strength, his grace, had inspired people all over the globe. Young and old alike had been moved by his appearance, his confidence, and the connection they felt to him. William felt a surge of gratitude toward the people who had shared their feelings, their support. He had never fully understood the impact of the monarchy until today, until he saw how his appearance had affected so many. It wasn't about the crown or the ceremony. It was about what he represented, the continuity of the royal family, the legacy of his mother and father, and the promise of a future built on compassion, leadership, and service. He reached for his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he scrolled through the messages flooding in. People from every corner of the world had sent him messages of support, admiration, and love. Some had even shared personal stories of how they had been inspired by him or how his mother had made a difference in their lives. William's heart swelled with emotion as he read each message. The world had been watching, yes, but it wasn't just the monarchy they saw. They saw him, a man who was doing his best to live up to the ideals of his family and his country. But there was one message that stood out among the rest. It was from his father, Prince Charles. The message was simple, but its impact was profound. "I am proud of you, my son. You've taken the first step toward a future that is yours to lead. I know you will make a great king." A tear slid down William's cheek as he read those words. It was a simple message, but it was everything. His father's approval, his belief in him, meant the world. The world had changed. The values of the royal family had remained the same, and he was ready to carry that legacy forward. "Thank you, Dad," William whispered, his voice barely audible. Catherine stood beside him, her arm wrapping around his waist. "You've got this, William. You've always had it in you." And in that moment, as he looked out at the twilight sky and the thousands of people still gathered below, William realized something important. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, there would be moments of doubt, and there would be times when the weight of the crown seemed unbearable. But he would never be alone. He had his family. He had his people. He had the legacy of those who came before him, and he had the love of his mother and father to guide him. The future was uncertain, yes, but for the first time, William felt confident that he could face it. He was ready to lead, ready to serve, ready to carry the legacy of the British monarchy into the future with all the strength, grace, and courage he had within him. The royal family, as it always had, would endure, wherein William, their future king, would ensure that it would thrive. The night was settling over Windsor, but inside William's heart, the light of hope burned brighter than ever.